This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat, ladies and gentlemen. Logan Sadler is here, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Rigeri Financial. Convenient locations in Hemet and Redlands, serving you in Southern California. Hey, we really appreciate your listening to the show today. My name is Ron Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Logan for a while here. And Logan, I trust that you've done well and you've been well since we talked last time.
Yeah, doing well, and I think this time of year all we could hope for is some good health, right? It's that time of year where I feel like everyone's got some type of cold or something going around, but yeah, I'm doing great, and hopefully you are too.
Well, glad to be on the show again today. We're going to talk about some really important stuff having to do with getting you to and through retirement, as always. And let me put your contact number out there really quickly, and then we'll get going here. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Call that number. You can have a discovery visit with Logan Sadler. Get to know him. He gets to know you, and it's absolutely free, no obligation. We'll talk about them more as we go along today. But kind of an amusing story that came out earlier this week. There was a woman in Wisconsin who recently gave birth in a McDonald's parking lot in the middle of a snowstorm after they couldn't quite make it to the hospital in time. The baby was already out by the time paramedics got there. They named him Micah, but they will primarily refer to him by his nickname, McFlurry, which I think is hilarious.
That is great, yeah. McFlurry, gotta love it.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I started talking about Wisconsin, and I thought, oh, this is something about being cold here, because so much cold weather there. I don't think
they know a thing or two about cold.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't think I could handle it when it was that cold, not on a consistent basis. Hey, let's talk about getting in your own way. A lot of people get in their own way when it comes to financial matters in particular. So let's call this segment Getting Out of Your Own Way. Let's talk about some of the common ways that people kind of make it tough on themselves when it comes to financial planning. First of all, a lot of people allow fear or greed to cause them to buy or sell at the wrong time. Don't you find that to be the case?
Yeah, you do. I mean, as we always talk about, I meet with a lot of different people in a lot of different aspects of their life, and mainly approaching retirement or more in their retirement years, so after age 50 or so. And you do see a lot more people tend to do things based off either greed or fear, right? Trying to make a little extra money before your retirement years is sometimes the goal, but also some people that are not wanting to lose any extra money before their retirement years. So you see some people make some emotional decisions. And just off the top of my head, I know quite a few people I had talked with throughout the last few years. We had 2022, which was a pretty bad year overall in most of the markets, right? In bonds and stocks and a lot of those different asset classes saw a down year. A lot of these professionals you see on TV were predicting a very doom and gloom 2023. And I know me and you talked about that quite a bit on the show, was how bad some people were predicting 2023 might be. And so we had a lot of people going, you know what, there's some banking issues going on, there's this going on, I'm out of the market, I'm going to go to all cash or money markets or whatever it might be. And for some of you, it may have been the right decision, depending on your risk tolerance and how you were positioned. But for some of you, we realized how 2023, for example, the S&P 500 went up over 20% during that year. Right. And it was something where, yes, they didn't predict that. Yes, we didn't know what was going to happen. It could have went the other way. However, sometimes knowing your situation and playing the long game might be the answer to the question there. And so trying to understand when is the right time to buy or sell is very difficult if you don't have a full plan and really understand your situation.
A lot of people also make bad investment choices in an effort to save money on taxes. And that is a subject that we talk about a lot in this show. And I would imagine that some people are so obsessed with saving money on taxes that they might get in their own way in that way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've seen that a bunch where, I had a client the other day, they're like, yeah, I got to, I have some money in the bank account, just basically not earning anything because I don't want to make any money on that due to taxes, right? And it's like, well, just because you really only pay taxes on the interest you earn, right? And they go, well, yeah, but still it's taxable. And it's like, well, Yeah, but if you put $100,000 in something and you made $5,000, only the $5,000 would be subject to tax based off whether it's ordinary income or capital gains rates or whatever it would be. So you still would have made money in that scenario, right? So I think a lot of people aren't aware of maybe some tax-sensitive investing, like maybe municipal bonds or some tax-free returns you can get out there in certain investments. But I think, having a tax plan is very, very important. And like you said earlier, Ron, we do talk about tax efficiency a lot on the show to make sure we're really aware of that. But it doesn't mean you don't want to make any money either, right? So I think that's important to really making sure you're working with a professional to help go through some of the ins and outs of what might be the best way to go about things investment-wise and tax-wise.
Well, let me just jump in here and say that, having a conversation with Logan Sadler, Logan can help you save money on taxes in the long run, and that's how we ought to plan for all those kind of things. You got to look down the road and see how things might be in the future, and Logan Sadler can point out a lot of things that you might not have thought about. Leaving too much money in cash for too long because you procrastinated instead of actively deciding what to do with that money, that's how a lot of people get in their own way.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I talked about earlier, where people were talking about, well, maybe I'll leave money in cash or I'll do this. And I've met with people over the years who are like, listen, Logan, I really needed to get a plan together. I need to get some investments going. I got, $500,000 in the bank, $2 million in the bank. I've seen all sorts of crazy numbers, right? And the thing is a lot of them talk about it. However, a lot of the times time slips away very, very fast, right? And a lot of you have missed out on some really good, if you wanted safe money, like money markets, CDs, a lot of those things have been paying great the last year or so, are projected to go down a little bit, but are still, paying a good rate or better than they have been in a long time. Also, we've seen, really, really great returns in stocks and other types of equity investments. So really, it's just about, stop waiting around and really, if you want to invest some money and you want to think long-term or short-term or whatever it is your goal is, establish a goal, get the money invested how you want to be invested, or consult with a professional to help guide you if you don't know the direction you're leaning towards on that. But I think getting started is very, very crucial because you're talking about lots and lots of money that potentially could be left on the table when you talk about compound interest.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regari Financial. I'm Ron Stutz, and we're talking about getting out of your own way, which some of us really need to take seriously. Overthinking every decision to the point that you never make any decision at all. A lot of people are struck by that. They think so deeply about one thing and they worry about all the possibilities that they end up doing nothing.
Yeah, we have definitely, right? We have a lot of people I've met with. They're like, listen, I know I got to do something. However, I'm busy at work or this comes up or that comes up. Or, some people I've talked with are like, yeah, I've met with about 20 financial advisors and I just, I don't know which one to go with. And it's like, well, yeah, you don't even remember which one you met with, right? Or their names or any of that stuff. And I think a lot of that, there's a lot of really good advisors out there and there's a lot of really not good advisors out there. But I probably could say if you met with 20 of them, one of them was probably pretty good, right? If not, maybe even a couple more of them. And so I think it's really more about, identifying what it is the advisor does, what it is they do and what they can do to help you, but also what are you looking for and really making sure you're being realistic with that and setting expectations going in. And then making a decision, right? You don't want to sit around and really procrastinate some of this stuff or just overthink it to where maybe it's affecting your sleep or your health or any of that stuff, right? You want to make sure you're thinking it through, yes, but also don't think too long before maybe it might actually end up being the opposite of a good decision.
A lot of people think so long and hard about, what financial advisor they need to go with and all that kind of thing. They end up doing absolutely nothing. And on the other hand, there are people who will jump at the opportunity to follow the advice of a next-door neighbor or a brother-in-law or somebody who's not a financial expert at all, but they're just taking it for granted that the advice that these people are giving out is going to work for them.
Yeah, that's a great spot. I mean, a great point there, Ron. I've had a lot of people I've met with throughout the years where they're like, listen, I got about $500,000. I'm single. I'm 60 years old. I want some income. I need some things like that, but I'm also very nervous about the markets. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe some money in maybe some annuities might work, some in the market, maybe some diversified ETFs and things like that. But also, just kind of throwing around some scenarios. And like, well, my brother-in-law, he's worth about $10 or $15 million. has a pension, has all these things. He doesn't think annuities are good, or he doesn't think I should be in ETFs. I should just be in stocks, right? And so it's like, well, yeah, because he's got enough money, and in his situation, he probably doesn't need any of those things I just mentioned, right? He probably could do diversification through the stock market. He probably doesn't need income because he's got a pension and probably more money than he knows what to do with. So in your scenario there, it's probably not even close to what his scenario is, right? So I think it's really more important to find out about your situation. And like you said, Ron, I've had people say, well, I heard a guy on the news say, you shouldn't put money in the S&P, or you shouldn't buy whole life insurance, or you shouldn't. Well, yeah, some of those things might be good. Some of them might be bad. However, I really don't think the person on the TV that's talking to 3 million people at one time knows your specific situation, right? And so I think it's super important if you're really looking to make financial choices or financial decisions that are going to impact your financial plan or your financial well-being, you want to make sure you're really using your coach or your advisor or whatever you want to call them to really make sure he or she is making sure that you really have a plan put together that's built for your situation. And someone to turn to ask questions about how these different decisions we may or may not make throughout the years may impact those decisions. And I think that's really what we always try to offer here at our firm is when you come on board with Regary Financial, you're not just hiring somebody to buy or sell stocks or to use this investment or that investment, but really to build you that comprehensive, customized retirement plan that's really built to address your goals and concerns about your upcoming or current retirement.
Always a good time to point out that financial planning should be on an individual basis because your situation is different from mine. We're all different. There's no generic financial planning advice out there from anybody, or there may be advice out there, but that doesn't mean you should follow it. Logan Sadler will get to know you. You get to know him, and he can find out what your individual needs and hopes and desires are. The number to call if you'd like to get in touch is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. But you can remember it easily by using the word plan. Write it down right now. Put it in your phone, whatever you need to do. 888-823-PLAN. Best thing to do is call that number right now. Leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back from the good folks at Regary, and then you can be sitting in front of Logan Sadler, and he can begin to help you with your journey on the way to and through retirement. If you like, there's no obligation whatsoever. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. You're listening to The Financial Beat.
Hi, I'm a cleverly devised personification of Wall Street. I'm one wild roller coaster ride away from wreaking havoc on your investments. If you're not properly diversified, you can bet I'll keep you up all night thinking about me. If you want to keep me off your mind, you really need a trusted advisor who'll look after your best interests. Don't wait for turmoil to hit.
In Southern California, call Logan Sadler and the Regary Financial Team at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, striking the right chords in your financial plan.
Welcome back to more of The Financial Beat. The beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler is here. He, of course, the Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial, serving you with two convenient offices in Southern California, Hemet and also Redlands. Remember that Logan works with 3 different generations of client families at Regary. Many of those clients have been with the firm for more than a quarter of a century. And Logan, of course, talks about getting to and through retirement every single week on this show. There are podcasts available. We'll tell you more about that later on, and also YouTube videos, a variety. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to get in touch. 888-823-PLAN. A conversation with Logan won't cost you anything and won't obligate you to do anything at all down the road. I read something earlier this week about Thurgood Marshall that I had not heard before, and there was a principal. I kind of gave away the punchline here, but that's okay. A principal who once punished a mischievous student by sending him to the basement and making him read the United States Constitution until he could recite it all from memory. That student was Thurgood Marshall, who eventually went on to become the first black justice on the Supreme Court. I think that's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Sometimes some crazy discipline sometimes, or some unorthodox
Yeah.
discipline sometimes could be the best thing for you in that case. Wow, that is pretty interesting how it ended up. I bet you he knows all about the Constitution now, right? I mean, wow.
Pretty inspirational story, that's for sure.
That is. That's awesome.
Inspirational man for sure. Hey, let's talk about Dave Ramsey. I think it's safe to say that most of the people who are listening to the show today about, financial advice and that sort of thing probably have at least heard the name of Dave Ramsey. He reaches more than 17 million people every week with his radio show, podcast, YouTube videos. Sort of like Logan Sadler, actually. But if somebody is listening to this show, there's probably a good chance that they've been exposed to Dave Ramsey as well. So I thought today we might talk about some of Dave's core beliefs that he stated many times on the radio. And Logan, you tell us if you agree, disagree, or if it's more complicated than that. You ready for this little exercise here?
Yeah, sounds fun.
One thing that Dave Ramsey has said is you should never use credit cards. Cut them up, throw them away, never use them again. Boy, that's pretty hardcore, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And like you had said there, Dave is one of those people in the industry where a lot of things he says are very, very well taken and understood. And then also a lot of things he says are misunderstood, or people just don't really agree with maybe his philosophies on that. So, I think, like I always say when everybody asks me about him, I think he's done so much good for so many people about budgeting and a lot of the general financial, concepts are awesome. However, I do think, like we'll get into here, some of them are a little bit hit and miss in my opinion. But like I said, helped a bunch of people, and I think a lot of his general concepts are pretty good. This one specifically, you'd asked me about cutting up all your credit cards. I get where he's coming from, because I've seen some people where it's like, perfect, you make, $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, or I've seen some people make $400,000 or $500,000 a year, and you have $45,000 in credit cards, right? And it's like, man, and the problem is a lot of people don't start out their credit card debt by saying, I'm going to get into credit card debt, right? It starts by, you go to Costco, you swipe it for $500, you buy a TV and whatever, right? And the next thing you know, you're like, well, we're going out to eat. I've worked hard, I deserve it. Swipe the credit card, right?
Yeah.
And you do that for a few months. Next thing you know, you're like, wow, I got $5,000 on there, and I only had, $2,000 to pay it off. Well, okay. So then you kind of start this cycle, right? And it does kind of snowball in the wrong way. So I get the concept of why he would say to cut up the credit cards. However, we tell a lot of our clients where you use your credit cards, if you're going to use them, you got to make sure you know yourself and make sure you're using them responsibly. Because credit card debt is one of those things where it is a guaranteed rate of return on your money that you're paying, right? So, if you're paying 10, 20, 30% on your credit cards, maybe not that high, but you're paying a lot. And so I think a lot of the things you need to realize is it something I really need to use it for? Am I just trying to get points or this or that? And do I really have the means to pay it off this month? Not next month, this month, right? You don't want to wait and get those accrued too much. And I think you need credit as far as the world goes today. So I think we need some credit cards around. However, we got to really make sure we're using them responsibly.
Yeah, and those balances really accumulate quickly and gradually, before you realize it, like you said. Another thing that he says about insurance, he says whole life insurance is a ripoff. If you should have term insurance, or be at the point in life where you need no life insurance at all. What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, it's another one where, I think I'm going to say what I think he's trying to say, or what I would say is, I think it really depends on what type of situation you're in, because a lot of people out there do not need whole life insurance or universal life insurance or some of these other permanent types of insurance. And they're being sold out there like they're this golden pyramid, right? Where so many people are using them for every single thing. And I think that is where a lot of the misconception comes from some of these investment types out there, like whole life insurance or universal life insurance. Now, the problem with it is I do see a lot of people, we do use universal or whole life insurance here at our firm as a part of the plan for a small group of clients. It's not for every single person out there doesn't need to put $50 a month in a whole life insurance, right? Sometimes term will do the job, and sometimes you should be getting term. But there is some instances where you might want to use some of these other life insurance policies, maybe for tax-free growth, maybe for maybe for the long-term care advantages inside them, maybe even for having life insurance for the rest of your life and not just for a specific term, right? So I think there's some advantages there, but I definitely think people need to be aware of not buying too much of this whole life, or really understanding, why am I buying the whole life? What is it going to do for me now or later? And what's the real benefit? And I think that's where having a real financial advisor that is comprehensive and that looks at the big picture is important, and also making sure that's not all they use, right? I have some people where they have an advisor and they're like, guess what I got today? Whole life insurance. Guess what I'll have tomorrow? Whole life insurance, right? That's all they use. And I think, like I said, it's a good tool, but there's definitely many, many, many tools out there that need to be factored in as well.
Another reason why you need a financial advisor who will take everything into account. You can't. It's really hard to make a blanket statement and say that's right for everybody, because it's just not. We're all different.
Yep.
Dave Ramsey has said that you should invest in 4 types of mutual funds: growth, aggressive growth, growth in income, and international. What do you think about that kind of advice?
Yeah, I think, the general concept here is that you should be in the market, right? I think let's just cut to the chase, right? Mutual funds are investments that buy the market. Now, one of the things I've seen is, the investments he recommends is everybody should buy the market. The big problem with that is some people just aren't comfortable with all their money in the market, right? Sometimes you need more bonds, or you need more treasuries, or you need to use goodies or other types of instruments that might be, more conservative, just depending on what the goals are. And I think those asset classes he had mentioned, a lot of people should be in the market. I like the idea of a lot of our clients being long-term in the market, or maybe in some active managed accounts. However, I don't think mutual funds is the way to do it anymore for most people. Do we use mutual funds? Yeah, we use them from time to time. But I think using exchange-traded funds, which are ETFs, tend to be a little bit more low cost, and you can get a little bit more diversified in today's world as far as active management versus passive. And also there might be some tax efficiencies there and potentially lower costs. So I think, understanding where you're investing is very important, but I don't think using the old school mutual fund way is the way to do it anymore. I think there's some other tools out there that might be better and have been, have really been shown to perform around the same as a mutual fund, if not more, but cost comparisons are a lot lower in some other vehicles out there.
You're listening to Logan Sadler on the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz. And Logan, while we're on the subject of mutual funds, Dave Ramsey has said that it's easy to find mutual funds that average more than a 12% annual return. Is that true?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's easy. I would say they're out there. I'm sure there's investments out there that have performed like that. However, is everybody willing to take the risks that come with those? And a lot of people say, well, if it's average that, what's the risk, right? It's like, well, the problem with those is they have years where they go down 20% or 30% or maybe even more, right? Because they're probably growth mutual funds. And I think the problem with that is some people just aren't comfortable with that. And does that mean it's right or wrong? No. But does that mean that some people aren't comfortable with it? Yes. So I think understanding that there may be some investments out there that have done well, I think here's where Dave gets a lot of harp on this one here, is where he has changed it before, where he says, I have mutual funds that have averaged over the last 10 years or 20 years, whatever term he uses, somewhere between 10 or 12%. It's like, but over what was it, 10 or 12, right? You can't average 10 or 12. Was it 10 or 12, right? And so I think he kind of goes back and forth on some of those numbers. And I think a lot of the times he doesn't really even show you exactly which funds he's talking about. He just talks about it. And so I think some people have some issues with which specific funds is he using, if it's that easy, why isn't everybody doing it? But my big thing is when you look at the overall concept, I just know from meeting with a lot of people in our situation that we deal with here as far as our ideal clients are typically in that retirement years, maybe 50 years old, maybe 60 years old, and they're in that time frame where they're probably not wanting all their money in the market anymore. They're probably wanting some more secure investments as a part of the portfolio to complement the market section. So I think, understanding that there's other asset classes you might want to diversify in is really more important for a lot of the people approaching retirement.
A final point here when we're talking about Dave Ramsey. He has said that once you get your other debt paid off, you should pay off your home as quickly as possible. What do you think, Logan?
Let's see here. Yeah, there's some truth to that, right? I think, sometimes having the home paid off could be a big advantage for some people. However, I don't really prioritize it in many of our plans, where what I mean by that is, if a client has a good significant amount of income and their mortgage is only, let's say they're making $10,000, $12,000 a month and their mortgage is going to be, $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month in retirement, I don't really see the point if they have a 2, 3, 4% interest rate. I don't see the point of taking all that extra income and paying down the house or taking cash out of investments to pay down the house when, probably you're getting the deduction on your taxes on that, on the interest on your mortgage. You're probably also, you're really not having an issue with paying the mortgage, and probably the investments you have in it are maybe averaging more than a 3, 4% rate of return, and you got to keep your cash, right? So I don't think I prioritize a lot of the time for our clients of paying off the home. However, there is some instances where it's like, hey, listen, right now you make $10,000, $15,000 a month, but when you retire, you're going to make $5,000 a month, and the mortgage is $2,000 a month. Yeah, we probably should pay that off, right? Because you're going to need that extra $2,000 a month in your bank account as interest, or sorry, as income. So I think looking at it from a few different scenarios, it may or may not make sense. But I don't think that's the general census for everybody should be to prioritize that over other things.
Logan, a lot of people out there listening to the show today may be here for the first time. They've never heard you on the radio before. And I just want to ask you a simple question here. Why is it so important right now, early in the year, for folks to give your office a call?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we always talk about is how important time is, right? Time is very, very important. And one of the things we always say is, as an advisor, us having more time to help us grow our relationships with you, especially as you're approaching something as big as retirement, right? And the more time you allow us to really kind of understand and analyze your plan, your goals, the more impact we probably can make on your overall situation. And I think a lot of the times people really love the idea of what our firm represents, which is full comprehensive planning. By looking at your overall picture, what assets you have, what goals you have, what concerns you have, and really being able to compile a plan that's built to address each of those topics, and also making sure that you have somebody and you have a team to help walk you through this phase and help put all those different puzzle pieces together as you approach your retirement year. So that's exactly what our firm has to offer by giving us a call and coming in for that discovery meeting, really just to seeing if we're a good fit and seeing if it'd be a good chance for us to work together.
All right, here's the number for you. Very important phone number, 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today. Leave a message with your name and phone number if you're calling during the show, and you can get a call back, and you can set a time to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. We call it a discovery meeting. Logan Sadler loved the opportunity to get together with you and to get to know you a little bit. And if you're calling during regular business hours during the work week, then, you may not have to leave a message for sure, because the folks at Regary always provide great customer service. Regary Financial has been around for a very long time, and with great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, and Medicare specialists as well. And they can offer you well-rounded guidance in all things financial. Logan Sadler would love the opportunity to talk to you. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. So why not call this number right now and get started, 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. You're listening to the Financial Beat. We appreciate your being here with us. Please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is here, and 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan, 888-823-PLAN. I mentioned this earlier in the show, Logan, that you have a variety of YouTube videos out there. Tell us about those and how do folks access all that good information?
Yeah, you can head over to YouTube and type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and it'll pop up right there on your channel, or right there to our channel. And you can check out, again, we upload videos there each week for you, and they're typically between 3 to 5 minutes on some different retirement education topics, maybe about learning more about Social Security or your risk tolerance in retirement, or how much should you have saved by age 60, right? A lot of those fun topics. You can head over there to the Financial Beat on YouTube and click subscribe and follow along.
All right. Again, go to YouTube and click on Financial Beat and put that in there, and then you'll find all those things there, and including the handsome face of Logan Sadler, who will be delivering all that information. So
thank you.
Hey, it's a good way to kind of get to know you without, before you even make that phone call. So again, that number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan one-on-one is 888-823-PLAN. I got a quote of the week I ran across earlier this week. I thought it was really awesome. It's from Edmund Stockdale. I don't even know who Edmund Stockdale is or was, but he once said, "Money isn't everything, but it's a long way ahead of what comes next." Well, it sort of goes along with, I've always thought that, money doesn't solve all my problems, but, I wouldn't mind giving it a shot,
Yes, it doesn't solve all your problems, but it would probably solve a lot of them, right?
It's gonna help. It's not gonna hurt.
Yeah, that's a good quote, right? Right. I think you're right, though, right? Money isn't everything. However, it does help, right? It does fix some things. Yeah. I've definitely seen some very, very rich people where money is not making them happy, right? But I've also seen some people where a little money make them pretty happy, right? So I think it's important to keep that perspective.
Yeah, it may not be a long way ahead of what comes next, because we don't know what comes next,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, love, for example.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's on the list. It's got to have some separation, right?
just something to think about there. Hey, we talked about Dave Ramsey a moment ago. That was a really helpful conversation, I think. And, a lot of people out there listening to the show today may be between jobs. A lot of people may have been laid off. Maybe they lost their job for one reason or another. A lot of people working from home, and that may not have worked out. I mean, who knows what the situation is, but finding yourself between jobs can be frustrating, whether you got fired, laid off, or just had to step away because you just hated your job. It can also present some opportunities. So let's discuss some of the challenges and opportunities that you need to consider if you're between jobs. Number one to think about, I suppose, is, when you assess the situation, is it time for a new career? Something to think about for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I think, is a chance maybe to branch out and explore maybe a new career path you haven't considered before. Maybe not just a different company, maybe something completely new, a whole new field altogether. That's definitely sometimes what I have seen where people maybe, they were in the software or engineering or nursing field and now they're in some other profession, right? So I think there's a lot of different opportunities maybe that might present itself, and that's something definitely I think you should look at as maybe a possible avenue if you're at that point of burnout or something like that in your current career.
Mm-hmm. Also, is it an opportunity to work for yourself? You may not be in a position where you can make that happen, but it's something to think about at least.
Yeah, it's funny is I have a client I'm thinking of where he was in his early 40s actually, where he was kind of presented with a weird situation where he was like, I have a side gig. He helped do communications and things like that, like radio frequencies and things like that. Right? I'm not super skilled in that area, so I won't go too in the depth. But communications, let's call it, right. And so anyway, he actually worked for a painting company and had a really good sales job and was doing really, really well in that area. And, the company was going through some weird scenarios and all that. So he actually decided to pursue this other industry and start his own business, and really it has absolutely exploded for him. And he has just absolutely done a good job. And I mean, and how scary at that age where, your early 40s, he had obviously kids he was taking care of, a wife, all those things. And it actually ended up being a really big blessing for him to have the courage to maybe branch out and do some other things. And obviously working for himself was a big leap, but sometimes it's okay to bet on yourself sometimes.
One of the problems that, a lot of people get really worried about, and with good reason, is if they're between jobs, maybe you had your health insurance covered by your previous employer, or you had a plan through your previous employer. What do you do about health insurance now before you connect with somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to look at maybe a COBRA plan, or maybe even if your spouse has other types of insurance, or depending on your income levels, just covered California. If you're in California, those are some things you want to look at, because that's one thing I tell a lot of clients when we're talking about retirement is, health insurance, right? Are we waiting till 65? Are we retiring earlier? And that health insurance conversation is massive. And I think it's important to try to identify that as quickly as you can, because as we know, if you end up not having health insurance and end up needing some type of care or surgery or some type of major medical event, that can be rather costly in today's dollars.
A topic that we have discussed many times on the show. In fact, just about every show we have, we mentioned it in some form. But is it a good time, if you're between jobs, is it a good time for a 401k rollover?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that your money that you were investing in your 401k has done probably well for you and probably in a good spot. However, a lot of you, if you're under 59 and a half, you would not have been able to roll it over anyways, right? Until you're now separated from service from that job. And now it's like, well, you know what? Maybe I roll it over to an IRA. Why would I do that? Well, maybe I want to manage it myself. Maybe I want to buy some stocks or buy some mutual funds I've been interested in. Or maybe I want to roll it over and work with an advisor and a professional to help guide me through a little bit more detailed on what investments I have and really building that plan out. And that sometimes is a great opportunity for a lot of our clients where, they worked in an employer for a while, maybe they're 40, 50 years old, and now they're like, well, you know what? I don't work there anymore. I can now roll over that 401k, and I really like to take advantage. And I see a lot of people deciding to do that, and really, I tend to agree with a lot of people in that realm where typically that is the best thing you could do is roll it over to an IRA and really help, like I said, manage it yourself, work with an advisor, whatever route you decide to go. But I definitely think there's some huge, huge benefits there.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we're talking about what to do when you're between jobs. Maybe you just left one job and you're looking for another one. And a good question to answer, and it's really smart to come up with the right answer here, is how do you handle any severance pay that you might be getting?
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, right? Is if you have an option to take your severance, is it a lump sum or is it a monthly installment? Do you know which option would be best for you? Have you ran the numbers, or you work with someone that's ran the numbers? You should really just make sure that you understand what you're supposed to do with that money. Do you leave it in the bank? Do you invest it? If I invest it, where the heck do I invest it, right? So there's a lot of those types of things that I think you really want to be working through. And I've seen some people make some great decisions and do some great things. And I've seen some people do some awful things, right, where it just didn't work out. I had a lady I always talk about a couple of years ago, took a severance, and she said, you know what, I've worked really, really hard all these years, and I'm going to go back to work, and I'm just going to enjoy it, right? So she spent about $50,000 of her severance package and had some really, really good vacations for about 6 months. And then guess what? She figured out she had some health issues going on. She wasn't going to be able to go back to work. And guess what? She spent her severance, right? So it was like, well, now we're unemployed. We're, in our late 50s, so we're not really early enough to retire. And now we're in a real sticky situation where having some extra money would have been very nice, right? So I think it's important to really make sure you understand your current situation, get a plan together, and really have someone to help you run the numbers and bounce those ideas off to make sure we're doing the right thing with those severance packages.
And if you're between jobs, you really don't have any idea how long you're going to be between jobs.
Yeah, could be a day, could be multiple days, right, or years or decades.
Exactly. Another important factor to consider is what kind of tax planning should you be doing? Maybe there's some things you need to think about, while you're in between jobs.
Yeah, I think one of the things is you might want to look at your tax planning, right? I think tax planning is one of the big things where, depending on, when you're separated and all those types of things, is there good options for Roth conversions, or did you receive lump sum severance packages? Are you in a higher tax bracket this year or a lower tax bracket, right? And I think really running all those different opportunities, I've seen many clients where they, go out in maybe late November and they've already made a lot of income, then they get a bonus or a severance, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to do some tax planning there, but there might be some instances where there's a lot of room to do tax planning. And I think that's one thing that having an advisor by your side is super important, because a lot of people think, the old school ways of, I just call my advisor if I want to buy or sell a stock. And I always say those days are gone, right? There may be some people out there that still do that, but I think really the value from the advisor that we could offer is being able to really look at your overall plan. Yes, understanding when you retire, where your income's coming from, what type of investments you have, what your risk tolerance is, what your estate plan look like. All those things are important, but also when the plan doesn't go according to the plan, and things change, right? Having someone that knows your situation, knows your goals, and knows your overall outcome potential, but then now being able to, okay, well, now we're retiring earlier, or we're switching jobs earlier, we're making more or less money, right? All these different types of factors, we're able to automatically know what to do and really work with you to make sure that we're looking at every little different perspective out there to make sure it's what's right for you. And I think that's where having the good advisor and having somebody like us to help walk you through some of those tricky situations, especially as you're approaching retirement or getting close to retirement.
Maybe you've been listening to this show for quite some time and you haven't gotten around to making that phone call. Well, why not do it today? Make today the day you stop putting it off. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is the number to call for Regary Financial with 2 convenient offices, Redlands and also Hemet. You can arrange to have a conversation with Logan Sadler one-on-one. This is the same guy you hear on the radio show. You hear him on the podcast. You see him on the YouTube videos. But you can sit down in front of Logan Sadler and have a conversation that won't cost you a thing and won't obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Why not get started? We all need a plan. We all are different. It's important to have an individual plan. Logan Sadler can help you put that together. Why not reach out today? 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we'll be right back with more in just a moment. Stay with us.
Are you worried about whether you're ready for retirement? Logan Sadler and the team at Regary Financial can help. Just text the word advice to 21,000 to take Regary Financial's free retirement roadmap checkup. Text the word advice to 21,000 and we'll send you a link to all of our free resources. From there, you can click on the button for the retirement roadmap checkup. You'll just have to answer a few questions and then you can see how prepared you are for retirement. This is a great starting point for people just starting to think about retirement. Text the word advice to 21,000 to get your free retirement roadmap checkup today. That's the word advice to 21000.
What is your name?
I am Arthur, King of the Britons.
What is your quest?
To get retirement ready.
What is the PE ratio on your portfolio's top grossing products?
I don't know that.
Don't get blown to bits by complex jargon. Let Logan help you over the bridge to a meaningful retirement.
Welcome back to more of The Financial Beat. We appreciate your being with us today. We're talking about getting to and through retirement, as always, with the inimitable Logan Sadler, often imitated but never duplicated. I don't know if that's really true, but I like to say that about people I like, often imitated but never duplicated. There's only one of you, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I hope so, right?
Yeah, I do hope so.
Logan Sadler is the VP and Chief Investment Officer. I say all kinds of things crazy about him because he's not going to say them himself, but he's such a humble guy. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to get to know Logan Sadler. And it's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all to sit down and have a conversation. Again, that number, 888-823-PLAN. Why not call that today? You know, oftentimes in the show, we talk about federal crimes that are on the books, and there's some crazy things on there, and you kind of wonder, how in the world did this become a crime? But because we look out for our listeners, we want to make sure that they don't run afoul of the law. And Logan, I want to say this because I want to look out for you too. Did you realize that it's a federal crime to play golf in any national park without paying a fee in advance?
You know what? I do play a little golf here and there, and
Yeah.
I've been to a park or two, and I did not know that. I don't think I broke the law before on that, but yeah, that's a rather interesting one, which I guess makes sense. But wow, yeah, no, I was not aware of that.
Why would that become a federal law? I have no idea. Now, some of these things.
It is amazing.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to the mailbag here because we have some great questions that have come in from our listeners. And first of all, I want to say that, we say mailbag, but these may be, we can call them request line too, because people sometimes call in with these questions. But our first question today is from Phil in Arrowhead. And Phil says, I'd like to retire sometime in the next 6 months, but I'm still more than 2 years away from my Social Security full retirement age. How much does this matter? Do I need to stick it out until then?
Yeah, great question, Phil. The answer, I really don't they really don't, depend it really around Social Security age, because it really depends on, what your overall goals are, what your income needs need to be, what assets you have saved. Do you have a significant amount in your 401k? How much money do you need it to earn? Because sometimes I have clients retire at 60, and they don't end up drawing their Social Security till 67 or 62 or 65, right? So it really just depends on the overall situation. So I wouldn't say that would be a reason not to retire, but I would say understanding your plan and making sure you have a plan with your overall assets and everything else, and making sure you have a that's really going to be able to work if you did have to delay till then to take Social Security, or if taking it early makes sense. But I think it's really important to get with an advisor or give us a call and make sure you really go over that more in detail in your situation. But I don't know if that would be a reason to keep working or not to keep working.
Just to make sure you know exactly what kind of effect it's going to have, and so you're not surprised by some of these things, and that all comes together in putting together a plan, which is something that
nobody likes surprises.
Exactly. Logan Sadler can help you with that. So, Phil, why don't you follow up with a phone call, 888-823-PLAN. Next question here is from Nancy in Winchester, and Nancy wants to know how important it is to have a financial advisor who manages her investments for her, as opposed to somebody that she just meets with periodically, who can give her advice and guidance.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think Nancy, there's value in both, right? I think having somebody that's going to periodically check in on your overall productivity, making sure everything's set up and organized, and someone you can bounce ideas off of and give advice, and that guidance, I think is very important. I think that might be some of the most important things that the advisors should be doing, is those periodic check-ins, financial plans, financial plan reviews, and then also making sure we're achieving the milestones we need to achieve, whether that's savings rate or amount money put away, or budgeting, whatever it might be. But I also think there's a lot of value in somebody managing your investments too, right? I've seen some people do some pretty crazy things on their investment sides that don't make a whole lot of sense. But I've also seen some people that do a decent job at managing their investments. But I think really what the advisor's job should be is managing the investments is important, but also the financial planning probably is more important. However, sometimes those things mirror each other, right? If we're doing your financial plan and we're looking at your tax situation and things like that, if we're managing your investments and see, well, you know what, we could do some Roth conversions here, or we could do some tax loss harvesting and sell some of these gains to offset some of these losses, and a lot of those different things that might come up, as well as making sure, we're not invested too aggressively based off the plan we're trying to do. So here's why we're going to use these asset classes and diversify this way. So I really think those all go well together. Now, there is some financial planners out there that only do the planning, or maybe only do the investment management. But I think one of the things our firm really tries to do is really specialize in doing the full financial planning and being able to orchestrate it with the investment management side of it too. So I think that's a great point, but I do think there's value definitely in having a combination of those.
Nancy, thank you so much for the question. And if you want to follow up with a conversation with Logan one-on-one, it is 888-823-PLAN. Brad has a simple question. He says, is it a bad idea to do a Roth conversion if I have a high income?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. As many of you guys know, I love talking about tax strategies for retirement. So, Brad, one of the things I would say is not necessarily, and that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but let me walk you through that. So, if a client that we're dealing with has a pretty high income right now, but is going to probably continue to have a high income, that's the answer I would want to know when we're looking at your future earnings. And that's one thing we could map out in our retirement plan there, as far as, when you're in retirement years or when you're years down the road, are you still going to be at a higher income? Does it make sense to wait to do conversions till maybe a lower income bracket? Or are you one of those clients that's probably going to be in a pretty high income bracket throughout your working years and then well into your retirement? Then it still might make sense to maybe do some Roth conversions if we're able to do them at a rather efficient level. So those are the two of the things I'd want to walk through there, because it's not just like, oh, okay, you make a lot of money, you never should do Roth conversions. That doesn't necessarily make sense, because if you're going to be in a higher income bracket down the road, many of us are doing Roth conversions because we're worried about tax rates going up, right? So it's one of those things where we definitely want to weigh out the balance there and make sure that we're looking at what our future tax rates potentially could be, and then make that tax planning adjustment now and do those Roth conversions. So just an example, if you're in the 24% tax bracket and you make, 190 to 364, If you're probably going to continue to be in that 24% tax bracket throughout retirement, it might make sense to do those conversions now, just depending on where you fall in those brackets, just because if tax rates do go up, it's a way for you to potentially pay a lot less in taxes by doing them now.
All right, Brad, hope you'll follow it up with a phone call, 888-823-PLAN. You can actually sit down and talk to Logan about all this in much more detail. Next question here is from David in Harupa Valley. David says, I'm trying to get to the $1 million mark in my savings before I retire in a few years. So I started a consulting company on the side to earn some extra income. Is there anything I should be doing to save money on taxes with this new income? And how many times have you heard people say that? I need to get to $1 million before I retire.
What's funny is that's the first time I've ever heard that today, right? But I heard it twice yesterday and then 3 times the day before that, right?
Really?
But no, thanks for writing in, David. We always appreciate the questions. First off, you might not need to get to that $1 million mark, just depending on what other assets you have with Social Security, your income level, expenses, all that stuff that's going to factor in to your retirement plan is going to be what's key. So I wouldn't necessarily be hung up on that. If that's what your overall goal is. Now, again, some people, we just like to say we have $1 million, right? So if that's your goal, more power to you, right? Now, as far as tax savings, unfortunately, when you're looking at things, there's only a few different things you could do at this point to start looking at tax savings and things like that, which would be 401ks, IRAs, and things like that, deferred comp investments where you'd be able to defer some of those tax rates. But one of the things I would start looking at also is that $1 million you're getting, is it all taxable money, right? Is it all 401k, 403b, IRAs, stuff like that? Or do you have Roth components in there? Because if you're at an age right now where you maybe still can do some into Roth, depending on your income levels, it might be a good time to start stacking away some tax-free money that might get you a little bit more after-tax money than that $1 million you had envisioned, right? So give me a call, or we'd love to set up a call or a Zoom. We could touch base on that and kind of see overall what your income picture looks like and where the income's coming from, what types of income, and then we could put together a little bit more of a detailed plan around that.
David, thank you very much for the question, and seriously, call that number and have a conversation with Logan, 888-823-PLAN. One more question today, Logan. It's from Larry in Harupa Valley. And Larry says, I'd like to help my daughter and son-in-law out with a down payment on the home that they're about to buy. What's the most tax-efficient way to get $50,000 to them? Should I just give them cash or give them some stock so they can sell, or what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing I'd really like to do too is loop in your CPA, because there's some gifting rules and things like that you want to look into. But I think in general, it would really depend on what assets you have. The stock, is it in an IRA? Is it in a just a regular taxable account? Do you have money in the bank? Right, different things like that. There may be some better ways via gifting strategies and stuff like that to give money. But also making sure, one thing I always say about it is, if we're giving away money, making sure you're in a situation where you can afford to give away the money, right? So making sure it's not going to hurt your situation at all too is very, very important. But there is some ways to gift some money, and there's better ways than others. As of 2023, which the rates have actually went up for 2024, but we were able to do $17,000 per individual under the gifting exclusion. So you can give, your daughter $17,000 and your son-in-law $17,000, and if you're married, you could do that as well with your wife to each of them. So that may be a good way to get a majority of that money over there. And again, looking into 2024's rates have went up a little bit as well too. So that is one strategy, but I definitely want to recommend getting with us or a financial advisor, or even looping in a CPA to making sure we're looking at all the ins and outs of your situation.
Either way, Larry, make sure you talk to Logan first before you end up doing this, because you want to make sure you do it in the most tax-efficient way possible. Logan, we've come to the end of another show here, and I just want to give you one more opportunity to tell folks why it's so important to reach out to you and what's going to happen if they do.
Yeah, so the best part about it is some of you maybe have listened to the show, which I've met with a few of you recently who have been listening for years, right, and just getting around to making the call. And some of you, this might be your first time, but really all you do is, if you like the idea of getting a full financial plan and having an advisor that really specializes in helping people get to and through retirement, what you do is you go ahead and call the number Ron gives you here in just a second, and basically you leave a voicemail, and somebody from my office will reach out to you first thing. And if you're calling on the weekend, we'll reach out to you first thing Monday morning to make sure that we're able to set a time that works for you to jump on maybe a Zoom call or maybe in person at one of our 2 offices to go over your situation and really dive into what we call our discovery meeting. And really during that meeting, we spend a little while just getting to understand what it is you're trying to do, what it is you've been through, where you're trying to go, and really trying to make sure if we're a right fit to be the firm to help transition you to and through retirement and really help guide you through one of the more difficult and maybe scary phases for a lot of you. And again, we've helped lots of people, probably just like yourself, get to and through retirement.
And one more time, that phone number, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember it is by using the word plan. We all need a plan. 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today. It's for Regary Financial. Logan Sadler is the VP and Chief Investment Officer. He's the one you're going to talk to. You can sit down with a Zoom connection or in one of the convenient offices and have your talk with Logan. Get to know him. He gets to know you. All of that is not going to cost you a penny, not going to obligate you to do anything at all down the road. You will pick up a lot of good advice, and you'll certainly enjoy meeting Logan. There's no question about that. He'll enjoy meeting you too. 888-823-PLAN. Well, Logan, we've come to the end of another show, and I'm telling you, it's been really helpful. It's been really informative, and I know you're going to hear from a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I appreciate that, and I appreciate each and every one of you listening. And whether it's your first time or you've been here before, we appreciate you stopping by, and we'll be back here again next week with another one.
888-823-PLAN, your number to call for Logan Sadler at Regary Financial. Thank you so much for listening to the Financial Beat.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.